Good evening, church. Welcome to our first evening of our 2025 year-end revival meetings. I'm super excited to introduce to you our theme, which is Forward by Faith. And as we wrap up the year 2025 and plunge forward into the year 2026, my hope and my prayer is that we as a church would strengthen and remember the importance of our faith. Each night, tonight, tomorrow, and on Wednesday evening, we will have 3 different speakers share a little bit more about faith. Tonight, we have Pastor Eden Sub, who is a pastor at Upper Room Fellowship, who will share with us for this first evening this idea of the faith to remember. So I hope you are blessed by his message. And remember, at the end of every meeting today, tomorrow, and on Wednesday, we will have a small group discussion and time of prayer to conclude our evening. You will see the link in the description below, or you'll see it on the QR code at the end of Pastor Eden's message. So please don't forget to tune into that Zoom link. It'll be the same link every evening. I want to encourage all of you to come on time, to enjoy this video, enjoy the message, and then come together to discuss and to pray together to conclude. But before we get into today's message, let's have a quick word of prayer. Dear God, Lord, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity we have to gather wherever we may be, at home, on the road, in our bed, wherever that is. And I pray that you would open our hearts and our minds to hear what it is that you want us to hear. As we conclude the year 2025, and as we start off the year 2026 with you, I pray that you would help us to recognize and develop our faith even further. Lord, be with us now as Pastor Eden speaks to us. Help it to be your words and not his own. Help us to understand what it is that you want us to understand. Be with us now, for we love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name I pray, and we all say, Amen.
Man of sorrows, Lamb of God, by his own betrayed, the sin of man and wrath of God has been on Jesus laid. Silent as he stood accused, beaten, mocked, and scorned, bowing to the Father's will, he took a crown of thorns. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where your love poured out over me. Now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. Sent of heaven, God's own Son, to purchase and redeem, reconcile the very ones who nailed him to that tree. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where your love poured out over me. Now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. Now my debt is paid, it is paid in full by the precious blood that my Jesus spilled. Now the curse of sin has no hold on me. the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. Now my debt is paid, it is paid in full by the precious blood that my Jesus filled. Now the curse of sin has no hold on me. Whom the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where your love poured out over me. Now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. See, the stone is rolled away, behold the empty tomb. Hallelujah, God be praised, He's risen from the grave. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where your love poured out over me. Now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, when it's all about you. All about you, Jesus. King of endless worth, no one could express how much you deserve. Though I'm weak and poor, all I have is yours, every single breath. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. it's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Break me, melt me, mold me, and fill me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me.
Hello everyone, my name is Pastor Eden, and I'm here to share a message with you today. When you look back on this year, what stands out to you? What do you remember about this year? I know a lot has happened in the year 2025, a lot of crazy things. But just to slow down and take a moment to reflect, specifically, what happened in your life? What are the moments that stand out? Maybe you had some moments that were worthy of celebration. Maybe you got into the school you wanted to get into. Or maybe you finished school. Or maybe you got a new job. Or some other monumental moment in your life. Or maybe you had some moments this past year where you were let down. You might have some moments of joy that stand out to you. Or maybe some moments of sorrow and grief. Whatever it may be, let us reflect on all the different things that have happened on this year and try to pick out the highlights. What are the moments that truly made an impact? That moving forward, if you look back on this year, 2025, you can look back and say, I remember that this happened this year and it changed me in some way. And as we think about those things, let me ask you another question. If God looked at you and your year, what would he see? What would he remember about this year? Of course, we know that God transcends time and space, but he's also a personal God who's very real in your life. If he looked at your life specifically in this year of 2025, what would be the highlights for him? What would be the moments of faith? How did you grow in your relationship with God this year? Or what were the moments of struggles and doubts? Maybe you had some prayers that were powerfully answered this year. Or maybe you have some prayers that you're still holding on to as we pass on to the next year, still waiting for an answer. When we look at and when we ask ourselves this question, we can reflect on our relationship with God and how God, in his perspective, may look at us this past year. In Hebrews chapter 11, which is our main scripture passage for today, we are given what is often called the Hall of Faith. It's a famous list of people throughout the Bible, men and women, who are remembered for their outstanding faith. They're remembered because of what they did, how they obeyed God in difficult moments, and how they've lived their lives in faith, in this relationship with God. And Hebrews chapter 11 can really be seen as a highlights reel of God's people throughout history. And it really picks out a few very important, crucial moments of people's lives throughout history. We have people such as Abel. We have people such as Noah and Moses and Abraham, Samson, Gideon, right? All these famous figures in the Bible. And we look to these people often for hope and encouragement. And we admire them. We grow up learning and hearing stories about these heroes in the Bible that are so faithful and how God rewards them. And we see that God remembers these figures, these certain people, for their outstanding faith. One of these is a very special, very important figure in the Bible, and you may know him. His name is Abraham. And we're going to be focusing on Abraham today. Abraham is mentioned actually more than once in this passage. And we're going to look at both times that he is mentioned. First, we'll open to verse 8. So Hebrews chapter 11, verse 8 through 10, if you'd like to read along with me. And it says, "By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God." And what we see is this, in this first example of faith given by Abraham, or about Abraham, is this. Essentially boils down to Abraham goes where God tells him to go. In this story, Abraham, as we know him as the father of the Israelites and also the father of many nations. This whole story starts because Abraham chooses to obey and he goes where God calls him to go. Even though he did not know where or why or how God would work through him in his life. And if we look at the actual story found in Genesis chapter 12, you can go ahead and look for it if you like. In Genesis chapter 12, it says that Abraham was 75 years old when God commands him to leave where he had built up his whole life. Imagine, you've already settled, you have your foundations, you know what you're doing, but suddenly God tells you to pack up everything and leave to an unknown land. 75 years old is not a young age, right? And it's definitely an interesting time to choose to go on this adventure. But what we see in Genesis is that Abraham does not respond or ask any questions. We are just told in Genesis that Abraham just goes because God tells him to go. And we see this powerful faith of Abraham. The next instance of Abraham's faith is found in another famous story. And we see it in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 17 through 19. And it says, "By faith Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son. Even though God had said to him, 'It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned.' Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead. And so, in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death." And this is another famous story when Abraham in Genesis chapter 22 obeys God and shows that he's willing to sacrifice even his only son because God told him to do so. This time, when God tells him to go sacrifice his son, we do see a response from Abraham. Abraham says, "Here I am." And he goes and obeys God and does what he tells him to do. And again, we see this powerful faith of Abraham. And we know that this was such a crucial moment in Abraham's life because we know that Abraham and Sarah did not have an heir for the longest time. We know that they struggled to have children. And when God promised Abraham, because of his obedience, because of his faith, that he would make him the father of many nations and a blessing to the world through his inheritance, Isaac was the son that was chosen to be the inheritance, and out of many nations would come. So Abraham was not only sacrificing his son, which of course he is very precious to him, he also chooses to trust God that even though it doesn't make sense, even though it seems like you might be questioning, that he might be questioning that how would this promise be fulfilled? How would my inheritance be fulfilled if I sacrifice Isaac? Abraham still completely trusts God in faith. And we see that in Genesis chapter 2, after he sacrifices, or is about to sacrifice Isaac, but is stopped by an angel, God makes or restates the promise that he made before and says, "Because of your faith, I will make your sons, your children, as innumerable as the stars." And what we see is that both these instances of faith is really, even though they may seem like two different stories, is really about the same thing. You see, Abraham's faith did not come from himself. Abraham's faith did not come because Abraham is this holy, righteous, incredible man. Abraham's faith in these two moments came from his trust in God. And that's the interesting thing about faith. Abraham trusts that God would fulfill the promise on his side. He trusts that God is faithful to him. And Abraham's faith is just a response to that. It's always that God's faith comes first. God trusts him and God gives him his promise to Abraham. And Abraham trusting in that, his response is what we call his faith. Our faith is the same way. Our faith is a response to God's faithfulness to us. Because God makes the promises to us. And we respond and we trust that God will fulfill those promises. That's what faith is. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, it talks about the same idea, defining faith as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Faith is the hope and confidence in what we do not see. In other words, in trusting in this future, our future, to God. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6 says, "Without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." And when we hear these words, when we hear this verse, there's a word that stands out to me. It's to please God, impossible to please God. And it sounds like, oh man, we have to please this all-powerful God. But no, when we actually think about it, it's just as when someone gives you a gift. When someone gives you a gift and you receive that gift, it pleases that person because it makes them a joyful giver when you receive the gift. In the same way, when we are faithful to Him, it's our response to receiving the promises, the rewards that God is offering to us. So when we receive it, it pleases Him because it makes Him a joyful giver. And that's what faith is. Knowing who God is and trusting in that He wants what's best for us. Believing that He will fulfill His promises. And what's interesting is when we look at Hebrews chapter 11, verse 13, it tells us something important about all these men and women of faith, including Abraham. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 13, it says, "All these people were living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth." You see, all these heroes in the Bible, they did not, in the end, at the end of their lives, receive what they were promised. They died still expecting, still hoping to receive what God had promised them. And you might say, that's not true, right? Abraham received his son and his inheritance and those blessings. And some of these other figures as well, you might see the blessings that they were received from God. But this ultimate reward, this ultimate fulfillment of promise, they did not receive. And yet they still lived and died by faith. Because they trusted and knew that God was preparing something greater. Something that went even beyond themselves. Something that went beyond their comprehension. Beyond their own lives. Now imagine if someone told you on Christmas, "I have a gift for you, but I'll give it to you sometime soon." And you say, it's Christmas, so you should give it to me now. But they're like, "Hey, just be a little patient. It's this amazing gift I have prepared for you. You're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. Just wait a little bit." So you wait, and you're waiting, and you don't know when it's coming. And you ask them, "Hey, where's my gift?" And they keep saying, "Hey, it's coming soon. It's coming soon." So you wait, and you're like, "Maybe it's for my birthday." And then your birthday comes, and you're like, "Hey, do you have my gift yet?" And they say, "Not quite. Just wait a little bit longer." And then more time passes. It's the next year's Christmas. and you keep waiting, you keep asking, and they keep saying, just wait a little longer, how would you feel? You would probably be like, this guy's never going to give my gift. But the person keeps insisting, trust me, I have this amazing gift for you. I just can't tell you exactly when, but know that it's coming soon. For these men and women in the Bible, these stories of powerful faith, that's what their faith was like. They continued to trust, not knowing exactly when the day would come, not even knowing exactly what the gift would be, but knowing that it came from a God who is loving, a God who knows what is best for them. They kept on waiting, and they lived and died by faith. And that's why it's so incredible. It is so difficult. It is almost impossible for us as humans to have that kind of faith. And that's when the struggles and doubts come in. Those questions come in. And we ask God, why can't I have it now? God, how long do we have to wait? Is this even real? Is this gift, is this promise ever going to be fulfilled? And you might think, if this faith is so difficult to have, how did those men and women listed in this hall of faith in Hebrews chapter 11, how did they do it? But if you actually look at the stories of these individuals that are listed in Hebrews chapter 11, these individuals that we look up to and admire as heroes in the Bible, we see that their faith was not actually perfect. We see that throughout their lives, they have asked similar questions that we ask in our lives. They also had their doubts and struggles. Think about even Abraham that we just read about. When Abraham and Sarah were first told that they will be given a child in their old age, Sarah laughed. And Abraham and Sarah tried to rush God because they could not wait, they could not be patient, and they tried to solve it their own way. They tried to fulfill God's promise on their own terms, in the way that they could try to understand, through Hagar, Sarah's servant. And what happened? Great pain and sorrow and harm happened and broke apart the family. And Abraham, throughout his life, made mistakes, and he lied about his wife, Sarah. And he had moments when he did not have this perfect faith that we might expect him to have. How about the others? How about Moses and Israelites in the wilderness? We definitely know that the Israelites were not perfect. And yet, we see them in this hall of faith. How about Gideon and Samson? How about David? Yes, they all had their moments. They all had their highlighted moments of faith that is listed in this chapter, but they had so many more mistakes. They had so many more sins. These were prideful, doubtful, fearful, hateful sometimes people that were flawed and broken. All the different mistakes they made. If we look at some of these stories now, we would even consider them unforgivable. And yet, they are included in the hall of faith, remembered for the moments when they stood their ground and they trusted God in a crucial time, in a difficult situation. And what we see is that ultimately, God does not remember them for their failures. God does not judge them for their mistakes and the sins that they may have committed. What God remembers them for is their faithfulness. Because ultimately, we are not saved by our works. We're saved by faith. Because God judges us not for our mistakes and our flaws, but God judges us by His grace and our faithfulness in trusting in His grace and receiving this eternal gift. We are not defined by our flaws and mistakes. We are saved by our faith in the God who is never, not even once, unfaithful. We may live our whole lives failing again and again, a disappointment to ourselves, and yet God will see us and He will remember the highlights. That moment when we looked to Him and cried out for help. That one time you took a step toward Him, trusting in Him. When you, or if you, talk to any of these heroes, talk to any of these so-called saints, they will not consider themselves with those titles. They will not consider themselves as heroes. They will not tell you that the secret to making it in this chapter of faith is about how holy and righteous they were, but that they trusted in a God who never gave up on them. They would point to a God who was always faithful to them. When God asks us to be faithful, He is asking to trust that even when we fail, that He will never fail. Now let me ask you again. When you look back on this past year, what are the moments that stand out? Do you think of all the different ways you may have disappointed yourself or someone else? All the different ways you failed or made mistakes? Maybe the difficulties and hardships you've had and real, raw struggles you've had in this journey with God and faith. Maybe you've had some moments that you deeply regret. But I want to encourage you and tell you that when God looks at you, when God looks at your past year and really your whole life, God will not remember you for those moments of weakness, but God will remember you by your faith. He will remember only the highlights. When you said, you know what, God, I can't do this on my own. I will trust you. God always says, these promises are for you. I will always be faithful to you, and I will always remember you. So as we head into the next year, as we head into the year 2026, let us not ponder on our mistakes. Let us not ponder on the things that have passed that we wish we could just change. But let us remember the God who remembers us always.